Hello. So I have a little story or testimony, I guess you could say that I'd like to share, and I've wanted to share it for a long time, and I kind of felt a little bit of resistance, I guess, to when I was sharing it, and it kind of went on the back burner. It never went away. The story never, the events didn't not happen, and I just kind of got pushed down or put off to the side for a while. But what I want to tell you about is a miracle, and I wouldn't say it's even one miracle, but it's actually many miracles. I've often referred to it as my my miracle buffet, kind of like when you're at a all you can eat buffet, and there's lots of food choices. There's not just one, and that's kind of how I've, as of lately, been describing this time period in my life where these particular miracles took place. And so I was asked, the church we're attending now, the pastor there heard my story and was just absolutely fascinated with it. And I think almost immediately, it's been a couple of years ago now, maybe, wanted me to share it with the congregation. And we scheduled at least once, and I had to cancel because of health issues. And I finally did end up doing it, but I didn't do it about this portion of my life, this story, because I did feel that there was some background history needed so that this story made sense, almost like a little bit of character development. So I did what I guess I would call part one, or the building the characters of the story at church, and got to share some of my childhood and whatnot. But I'm going to try to keep this one more to the actual event, and to not only the event but all the other things, these kind of little side stories or whatever that were going along with it at that time period. So it's what took place was so, and what I'll share, I'll get to it, but what took place is hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to, I don't know if I would say understand. I think I understand, but I found myself sometimes going, did this happen? Because it's just there's a little bit, there's a little bit to it, but well, I guess we can we'll start in. I'll try not to jump around, but I haven't necessarily written this out or even made myself a kind of a timeline or events to follow. But if you ask most people, and they say, oh, that miracle of his, that miracle, they would pretty much automatically think, or it would be implied that it was in regards to a pretty severe motor vehicle accident that I was in about nine years ago. In fact, just I had kind of forgotten about it, but just a couple days ago, it was the 9-year anniversary. And don't get me wrong, that that part of the story is a miracle. It absolutely is a miracle. But I think we have to back up, and I think there's parts that even those around me, some of those around me close, don't know about, I guess. So, we, my wife and I, Patty, we have some rental properties, and I know at this particular time in my life when the story starts out that I was actually kind of going a little crazy on a particular rental. It was to say it was a remodel uh, is kind of an understatement, I guess. But I was pretty deep in it, and I think normally you would have a lot more people involved uh, than what was involved to get the project done. But uh, I was clearly in the thick of it. Um, I do know that some of the days around this time period, I cannot tell you exactly, when it was, but I know it was in 2016. Um, and the I remember working on the project when it was hot out, so it was obviously summer. But the time period that I'm talking about, the weather was changing. The weather was getting nice, and it was, you might even occasionally put on a kind of a spring jacket because the temps were starting to get a little lower, I guess. And around this time period, I was going pretty strong on the project. And anyway, I was laying in bed with my wife, and this particular night, and somewhere in the middle of the night, I can't tell you, what time it is. I didn't look at my phone or anything, see what time it was, but um, I was woken, and I know you're going to probably think this is crazy, but I was awoken by a personage. Okay, a personage, and I should put a disclaimer right now. Um, I actually did this at church a couple of weeks ago, but I won't put this disclaimer out there. Um, I may use terminology that that may ruffle your feathers. Like you may go, nope, no, you couldn't have done that. You couldn't have done that. And I want to be the first one to say that I I'm not exactly saying I did do that. Okay, in the way that a person may be receiving the words that I use. But I want you to know that I've had 9 years, 9 years to think of the correct words to describe the events. And, and these are the best earthly words I can use because I think that's the best that's available to us. So, I'm sure if I am wrong, which I kind of don't feel I'm wrong, but if I am wrong, I think God's going to cut me some grace on it. If so. And anyway, I don't want you to zone out on the story because you don't think I used a word right to describe something. So anyway, I'm sorry. I should have put that in the beginning, not in the middle of my story. So back to that night, back to getting woke up to this, like I said, this personage. Um, I can't tell you a lot about the personage, other than I can tell you some things that I do know. There's some information I don't know. It was a male personage. I can tell you that it was a male personage. It did not present to be evil in any way. Anyway, not once from that night till now have I ever felt that presence being evil in nature. Okay, my best way of describing it, it was just matter of fact. It was kind of neutral, I guess. So let's get into it. Let's okay. So this personage, this visitation I had, what took place? Well, what took place is I was told upon being awoken that that I wouldn't live a full life. And I don't know how that would hit most of you listening to this story. You hear this, I mean, oh, you're not going to live a full life. But for me, I don't know if it came outwardly, but I promise you, internally, I chuckled. I kind of scoffed or whatever, like, duh. And for those in the audience that are listening to this story that don't understand the duh, my response to this, why, and I've had mental health my entire life, well, not entire, but I was down in the single digits when I knew it, and I have fought and wrestled with this condition my entire life, even to this current day. And it's for real. It is seriously. I'm not trying to diminish people with lesser cases. I'm not trying to brag, my case up or have anyone feel sorry for me. I never want anyone. I don't want any compassion ever. Like sympathy for my condition. It's mine, and I own it. But there was a tremendous amount of childhood trauma, and I believe also some genetics that has laid this upon me. So if it's just like I was saying at church the other day. I'm no exaggerating. 20 times, 20 suicide attempts, I would say I've had in my life, real ones, okay? In fact, to the point that I don't even like to use the word suicide attempt. I don't like that. I like, I much rather use the term failed suicides, okay? And you may go, well, what's the difference? And in my mind, and I figure I should get an opinion on this since I've lived with it, is to me, there's a little bit of thinking, I think, that happens, or it does in my mind, that a suicide attempt may not have been performed with the 100% intention of dying, okay, which is obviously the goal of suicide is to not be here anymore, to die. But oh gosh, there's some questions, but I believe there's a lot of people that were doing suicide attempts as a call for help more than anything else. Just I don't even like attention getting. I'm sure there's a very, 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 very small people that do it for that reason. But I do think there's some that it's really is just a cry of desperation, looking for help. And unfortunately, some of those fail. And so that's the ones that I think of when I think of suicide attempts, when they're more so attempting to get help or attention, not die. And it's mind blowing how many of those actually do end up in fact, suicide, and death. And but anyway, none of mine have been with that intent. Okay, they were to get the job done. They were highly effective. They were well thought out. Each and every one's chance for failure was extremely low, and the chance for success was extremely high, and yet they failed. Which is another very interesting thing to be living with. So when the personage, when the fellow, the being or whatever you want to say, says to me, "Hey, you will not live a full life," you could probably start to understand why my response was like, yeah, duh, no kidding. No different than if you had a heart condition or something, and you're on heart meds, and whatever. Maybe you've had a couple whatever events, some ER stays. Somebody told you, the person with those conditions, you're not going to live a full life. You're going to be like, well, yeah, I've kind of made peace with that. Yeah, I realize that. I'm probably not going to get into my 90s. I surely am not going to see hundreds. Anyway, that's no different than my case here. So, uh, the personage or whatever the being, upon my response, like I said, I don't know if that response was out loud. I feel like it was, or like kind of a chuckle, like yeah, really. You don't say. But the next thing that was said by the personage or whatever was, yeah, I'll never forget the words, but it won't be of your hands. It's kind of funny, And probably almost 10 years later from that event, I still thought it was real. That changed me in a nanosecond from haha duh I'm gonna die to whoa, wait, it's not gonna be in my hands. That means it's not gonna be of suicide. It, you know I'm gonna die some other way, young, not of suicide. And I'll tell you, it did not take me very long to process that. It did not take me very long to go from one feeling of almost a cockiness or whatever to this absolutely depth in the weight, in the gravity of this set upon me. And I know there was a little bit of pause, and I asked the one and only question that I asked that night in this event. And I don't know, I think you would probably ask the same thing, because who wouldn't want to know is, and that question was, well, how long do I have to live? I thought that was a pretty good question. Because before, all my life, I've tried taking my life, but I've never been in a situation, where I guess you would say that option was taken away from me and I was no longer in control. I don't know. You might think, well, gosh, wouldn't you be happy? You always wanted to die, and now you're going to die young. You're being told this, but that's not how I felt. It shook me to my core. It still, you could see, and wait till you hear the rest of the story, because you're going to see, just when you see the way that I'm responding to that event, and the rest of the story, you're going to understand just how much gravity there was to this conversation that night as my wife, lay next to me asleep in bed. And, well, there was a response, and, there wasn't much delay. And I'll never forget the response, but it definitely added a new level of depth to it. The response was that I wouldn't live long enough to see my first grandchild. Okay. Now, it's been like I said, about nine and a half years ago, and I can pretty much tell you out of all of our 7 kids that any of them had the ability to make offspring at any time if they chose, and some were, living together with their some pretty serious relationships and stuff like that. So this, it's not like my kids. It's not like my kids were like 1, 2, and 3 years old. So I surmised that if this was true, that my end was going to be sooner than later. I mean, if we look a short timetable, and let's say one of them didn't tell me that they were so far along, then I mean, it could probably have been like 5 months later, and realistically, max probably 5 years, and anyway, so that was a you don't go that was the end of it there. I don't remember a goodbye. I don't remember like any smoke or any vanishing or fading away or nothing. It's just it just kind of ended. And quite honestly, I don't know if there's really was much more that that needed to be said. I mean, do you really need to stretch that out anymore? Does any more clarification need to be said? I don't think so. It was a long night. I don't know if I ever went back to sleep that night, and it's just one of the heaviest things I've ever had put on my lap to that point. And I'd had some pretty heavy things put on my lap through my life, and this was by far the heaviest. So I'll tell you how the days going forward, how they took place, and I'm not saying I'm not saying I did this right. In fact, looking back, it was probably entirely wrong. I don't know, but I guess without, I didn't share it. Okay, I didn't share this thing that was going on right away, and the but I lived with it. I lived with it, and so the way I dealt with it is I thought, well, gosh, if I've got this short a time, I got to get my wife better set up in a better situation, whatever that looks like, for me being gone. And so what that mainly looked like was just relentless, over the top days, long days, trying to finish up things, I guess you could say, which was interesting because in looking back on it, that behavior was starting to drive a kind of a wedge, because between me and my wife, the one I'm so concerned about is the one that I'm kind of, I guess, alienating or whatever, and kind of don't bother me, because I got to get, but I never told her why, but I got to get this done. And so okay, so then the question is, did I share it? Yes, I did share it. I shared it with 3 people. Okay, 3 people, and I can tell you exactly who the last one was, but unfortunately, I've had a couple rounds of ECTs, and so I've got mixed up. So I can't tell you if I told my counselor first or if I told my buddy first. My gut says my buddy. Okay, and but what I do know for a fact, what I do know for a fact is their responses and how it went, all three. So it it really is not going to be important between those two. So we'll start with we'll start with my buddy, and we're pretty good friends, and I don't know, I mean, just kind of put yourself in yourself in my shoes, and let's say you had to share that story, that information with your good friend. What would that look like? I don't know that I knew what it would look like, but I guess I also didn't think it would be like it was. Which when I told them there, I don't know. There wasn't too much response, and I really don't know if I don't know if that was his way of maybe he couldn't process it, and so he just kind of went quiet. But it was kind of, I don't know. I was just kind of hanging out there, like, I told you all this. Give me some counsel. Help me interpret it. Help me interpret. And I don't want to. It didn't fall on deaf ears, but it surely felt like it fell on a deaf mouth or response. There really wasn't much coming back, and so that put me in kind of a even more unique situation, And okay, so I mean that's about all to add on that one. So I see a counselor weekly, and I have since I was little for an hour, for an hour a week. And Marcia was her name, and older lady. And I shared with Marcia, and I would say this was probably 2 or 3 weeks now, maybe after it took place. And I told her, and I thought her response would be kind of like the other, like my buddies, but it actually wasn't. It was very. She was actually genuinely interested, and asked questions, and we kind of talked about like feelings, and I seriously was kind of sitting there going, man, she's a good counselor, like she's really helped. I thought she, yeah. I mean, so we talked about it as long as I needed to talk about it, and she was interested. She was asking questions, and so I would say it was probably another week or maybe 2 weeks before I shared it with my wife. And I can tell you exactly where we were. I even remember which way our bed was facing, because it was in our bedroom. And what I can't remember exactly is what she was talking about, okay, my missus. But I can tell you what the gist of it was. But whatever the gist of it was basically like whatever this conversation was something regarding me and her and the future. Okay, I don't know. I can't. Maybe it's going on a trip. I don't know what. I cannot remember exactly what it was. But she's carrying on for a while. Talking about it and stuff like that. And I'm just starting to. I'm just starting to well up inside. I'm just. I just kind of start turning into this little baby. And you may, well, why would you do that? And well, I remember, in kind of that broken voice and the tears, I shared with her that I wouldn't be there. This thing that she was talking about, I wasn't going to be there, and obviously that was a nice intro, I guess, to share the story and the night and my buddy's response and the counselor's response, and just I guess basically bring her all up to speed. and we we just kind of embraced each other, and we just cried, cried together. It felt like quite a while. It was kind of one of them where you cry long enough that you're tired, and that day, kind of eventually ended. How do you close those kind of days? I don't know. They just eventually they end, uh, and you kind of return back to life. Uh, Although that night I didn't directly discuss with her the fact that I felt like I was working my tail off to get her prepped out for my death that was coming up. Um, well, that's exactly what I went back to doing anyway. Is just the grind, just a relentless grind. We had we had some different events in here. This is kind of a miracle story. This is a godly type story. You know, if I could sum it up, this is a story that God still does miracles in this day. Okay, so we found out about this Bible study, and we started going to this Bible study at these people's house. So we're going to church on Sunday. We're pretty plugged in and doing our stuff, our different things, but we're also doing this new Bible study and doing it. And, there's like different levels of like Christians, kind of, I guess. And this group, this Bible study group, were kind of deep. They're kind of pretty deep topics. And I don't know if it happened the first night we were there, or if it for me happened the second night. But I had observed that afterwards, two of the people went over to the living room and was praying for one of the individuals there, and they were praying in tongues, and that might. And then actually, the other person was interpreting, and this was probably the first time I had been exposed or experienced this in person. And anyway, they get done, and like I said, I cannot remember if it was that week or maybe like the next week. But then I shared my story, and then they said, hey, like let's pray for you, whatever. And they did the whole thing for me, and um, it was quite an experience. There was two main things I got out of it. One that I got out of it, and this is probably the first time that I got this. What do you want to call it? Like people's feeling of that event, where they thought it must be evil. God would not do that. Not do it. Oh, it's evil. So basically, they're you know trying to chase evil away from me, out of me, out of my home, out of my life. Evil, evil, evil. This deal, and I thought, well, that inside my head that didn't really resonate, because that's not the way I felt at all about what took place at all. Um, and but I will tell you this: after that laying of hands and the speaking tongues, praying over, man, my next week or two was weird. It was really weird. Um, I don't know if my feet ever touched the ground. It was just a weird feeling. This kind of elevated feeling, but it was from head to toe. Like I said, my step felt so light that I didn't even feel like I was touching the ground. And you know, I'm trying to think if there's any more events because I'm trying to keep this in order. Okay. So our, uh, our pastor of the church we went to, he, uh, he was moving. Okay. He was moving. And so we actually helped him move from just down the street from us to another really close by town. And because I believe he was renting it, and maybe the house finally sold. Anyway, some people bought it, and we at church, I just happened to run into him, but I got introduced to the people that bought the house, and so the husband was an engineer and she was a doctor, and we were just talking lightly, and that Sunday right there in that moment uh, was the only time that I had met them to that point, met them or whatever, just that, I don't know, 15-minute conversation. Oh yeah, you're our new neighbors, da da da. Yeah. Um, I think that's pretty much everything for there. So if we if we fast forward, um, the days are definitely cold and snow at different times, and I I don't know the exact date. It was like January 4th, 5th, I don't know, 6th, I don't know, somewhere there, beginning of January, and my kids were visiting, um, yeah, from Texas, and they were leaving that morning and driving back to Texas, and I actually it's kind of crazy because I took my deal was work 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 work. It was just relentless. But my buddy had called me, day before, night before, who knows, and he was going on one of them Facebook marketplace runs to pick up a water heater, and I might have even told him no or didn't offer in the beginning. I don't remember. But anyway, his other buddy that was going to go fell through, and so I'm like, I'll go. I'll do it. Which was, like I said, went completely against kicking butt and getting things done for my own stuff to get ready for my death. And so here, uh, I it's just kind of crazy when you can remember details so vividly, and then certain areas of your life you just don't. But I remember that morning as the kids left and hugged goodbye, da da da. They go out one door, and my buddy shows up in his little S10 truck, and I grab my appliance dolly, the dolly to move the water heater when we picked it up. He had pulled up, and as I passed by our bedroom door, my wife was was kind of wanting a moment of my time. She was, hey, da da da, and I can tell you exactly to this day what my response was, which is, I don't have time for this shit. And I left and I went out the door. I could have done better with that, I think. Yeah, that was pretty crappy. But that's the truth, and we want to have the truth here. So I get in the vehicle, and we are actually heading towards, I don't remember where our destination was, but towards Dubuque, and my kids, basically they might have been 15 minutes or half hour ahead of us leaving. They were heading towards Cedar Rapids and going down towards back down to Texas. So we got I don't know, maybe 4, 5 miles from home or something like that. And it was kind of interesting because usually one of us would be playing on our phone or whatever. But, this was pretty early in the morning. I don't remember. I want to say it was like 6 or maybe 7. I don't know. But it's dark, because it was wintertime. Yeah, and the roads are all clear. And, I don't even know if there was really even snow on the ground. I don't remember. Yes, there was snow on the ground. Yes, there was. Uh, so, but the roads were, they were clear. We hadn't had snow in a while. And we got the cruise control going, and both of our phones are just sitting there. We didn't have the radio on. We weren't really doing anything. We were probably, for the most part, just doing what two dudes do in a vehicle when they're going somewhere, which is say nothing. You just sit there. And we got to Delaware, and we went over the bridge. And so there's the bridge that went over. It's been there heck since I was a kid, but it used to go over a railroad track. A train went underneath it, both lanes on this 4-lane highway. I don't even know if there's tracks under there, but it surely has not been used in like 40 years or something, at least. But anyway, it goes up and over it, and when that little S10 hit the bridge, we got on, actually onto the bridge. It became apparent real quick that we hit black ice, and like it was just, there was like zero traction, and in the length of that bridge, we were doing whatever 65. We weren't really speeding or anything. I don't even know if we had a few over. We really weren't in a hurry. But in the length of that bridge, we went from going eastbound to facing westbound, and I don't know that our speed changed much. It didn't feel like it. Let's just say that it didn't feel like it, and it didn't take long when that happened. I mean, this all happened pretty fast. I'm stretching it out, but it was fast, so really, really fast. But in the like that bridge, when we spun around and we were going backwards, if you will, it didn't take me long to figure out this. It just there was no, this wasn't going to end good. So I had reached up, and I can't remember that. I do know one hand went, or maybe both hands went. That S10 had like a grab rail in the dash, and I did the one thing that I don't want to say you're not supposed to do, but the one thing that keeps drunks safe in their own accidents is the fact that they don't care. They're relaxed, so their body just flows around. But because you're not supposed to tense up, but what is human nature? Brace yourself. So I'm squeezing, and I don't think we ever hit the side of the bridge. I don't recall doing that. I think we got completely clear of the bridge. But what had happened is we were going sideways also. Okay, and if anyone's been around in these type of states when they plow the snow. This is why I remembered it snowed. I can't believe I forgot for a while, especially when you hear the rest of the story. But anyway, when they plow the snow, it ends up making a pretty hard edge, if you will, like a taller edge off the edge of the road, out by the grass. And we were going backwards and sideways with just a tremendous amount of speed. And when his side, so it was his side, I'm the passenger. I guess I haven't said that yet. I was passenger, I guess. Otherwise, I would grab the steering wheel, right? But when his side hit the snow, the two tires hit the snow, I would say the only way I've ever described this is it was the most violent thing that I've ever experienced, ever. The truck, I, I want to say slowed down, but it did, but it didn't. But when it hit that impact, those wheels hit that impact of that grass-packed snow on the side of the road, the bottom side of the truck slowed down. Yet the top of the truck was very much still in motion. And that's when my first injury happened. So the truck was now traveling, but what happens, just like when you ring a bell, our bodies were stable in the truck. They kind of a different motion, I guess you will. So as the right hand side of the truck came towards the ditch, it was also coming towards my head. And yet my body was, I guess just staying more neutral, like it was kind of immune to this a little bit. To the point, I mean, that my head went through the glass. It did that. That hurt. And it knocked me out. It put me out. So we're pretty high up in the air. Obviously, we have to clear. We're still high enough because we're kind of on that part that ramps up to a bridge and then down to it. Comes down. So we're taller than a train. We're way tall, and we end up rolling down this steep embankment. And I think me and my buddy have tried to figure out how many times we rolled, but I don't know. I think 5 or 7. Maybe 9. I don't know. Enough. And every time the vehicle rolled or came around, since mine was not the leading edge, mine was the trailing edge, okay, of the vehicle. Because remember, it's sideways. We're barrel vaulting, I think is what you call it. We're barrel vaulting. And when my side came down and hit the ground each time, it just was destroying that truck. The truck was just trying to keep up with it. And so it was smashing the roof down, but it was also smashing the roof over towards the driver's side. This was violent. I mean, it was pretty angry. It was so violent that the floorboards of the truck, I know this now. I obviously in that moment I didn't know all this was taking place other than the window, but it actually buckled the floor up some, and so the seats were pointing outward some. Now, not a tremendous amount, but they were pointing outward. Okay, and so if you can imagine, my seat, which I'm in with seatbelt and whatnot, is continuing, on every impact to lean outward, towards the door, and yet the top of the door and the roof is continuing to go towards the driver's side and down, down lower. So the vehicle finally came to, stop moving. And seriously, I bet this whole thing I just told you about, from like that, the beginning to the end was like, I don't even know if it was 10 seconds. It was probably like 5, It's fast and it is angry. And, I was laying there, just in my mind at that point, I'm not really processing any of that. I'm just kind of there. I'm in my mind, and I was alert to the world, but I could, very much probably from the outside look like I wasn't part of the world. I was, because I could hear everything that's going on, is what I was trying to say, and I could feel everything that was going on. And all I remember is the I could feel and hear, but man, more feel than hear, was my buddy's. What word do I want to use? His. I don't know. I keep wanting to say anxiety. That's not the right word I want. But he was worked up. Anxious. He was anxious. Like he was very frustrated and just worked up. And he the vehicle came to a rest on its side, and so my side was down on the snow, and his side is up in the air. So we didn't land flat or anything. We landed up sideways with me down, and my head was laying on the snow, on the ground, because remember I already got rid of the window, and so I'm laying there in the snow, and it was so extremely cold. Man, was it cold. And I get panic. That's what I want to say. I could hear the panic in his voice and everything else. And I heard him undo his seatbelt. There was something about he couldn't find his phone, his phone. And anyway, he finds my phone, and my phone was fluorescent pink. Because of the years of construction, usually the guys in construction have a color, and mine was pink. It seemed like most dudes didn't take pink, so I took pink. It was easy to find your stuff, and it usually didn't walk off. And my phone case was the same way. It made it easy to find if I set it down or whatever. So I had a fluorescent pink case on it. And he finally found. I'm still out, if you will, but he found my phone down by my feet, because obviously it's still dark out, but it's fluorescent pink, which really helped. And anyway, he's trying to dial 911, and the frustration and just, man, he was just getting more and more. I say amped up, but it wasn't amped up, but worked up. I don't know, because I didn't have a screensaver or anything, thank goodness, on my phone back then, which I guess I do now, but I didn't back then. But he opens it up, and if we look at all you guys, most people's phone, the phone icon is on the main screen, and I didn't have a phone icon, and he couldn't find it, like to be able to dial 911. That was the goal of this, and so he, in his desperation, he's trying to, hey Google, call 911, and all this stuff, and I don't think Google's got much better today than it was then, but it would not. It wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. He needed the green phone icon. Okay. Frustration would be another word I'd say. Just a overabundance of frustration. That he was having in that moment, and I could feel it. I could feel it to my core. Just no different than if I was experiencing it. He kept trying different things, and eventually I came to, I guess, to the physical side, the talking side, and because I was kind of a little bit of a mess, but I told him, I think I remember how I said it, swipe 2 screens to the right or left, I don't remember, something like that, and I think I even repeated myself, and this was not very easy for me to do at that time, in that moment. and then of course he swipes my screen just like I told him, and he found it. And the reason is, this is just craziness. A couple days before then, and I was just lazy. I don't know why I didn't fix it, but some reason my phone icon got dragged and dropped like 2 screens over to the right. And why didn't I just drag it back? I don't know, but I didn't. But I just kept using it for that next couple days, 2 screens over. So anyway, he calls 911, and I could tell from his voice that he knew the lady. In fact, when he heard the 911 lady's voice, that he even dressed her by name, and said who he was, and was sharing about our condition and whatnot. And she must have, I don't know everything that was going on, but she must have been kind of talking him through this deal and where you at and all that. But I know somewhere in there, I had kind of cried out, if you will, a little bit, that I was so cold. Kind of like I was telling you earlier, that snow on my face and neck and everything was just so, I don't know why. It wasn't that cold in the morning, but it was extremely cold. And I remember him propping up my head, and I think he put his stocking cap, maybe, between my head and the snow. So I really wasn't doing very good at this point. And every time I would breathe in, or whatever, breathe out, I guess, it was less and less. That's all I know how to say. It was less and less each time. And I always kind of joke about it, but I was making red snow cones. I'm coughing up blood and stuff out. And my face is right down in that snow, and that's a really weird feeling when this did not take place over a long amount of time. We're not talking like a half hour. We're talking like, I don't know, maybe a minute, 2 minutes tops. I don't know, pretty short. But that's a unique situation to be in when every breath gets smaller and smaller. The reality of the situation creeps in pretty quick. And I said, hey, I couldn't get much out because there wasn't the lung capacity. There wasn't, but I remember saying, call my wife and kids and tell them I love them. And then the next sentence out of my mouth was, and I know he was still on the phone with 911, but the next thing I asked for is to, something to the effect of, please start to pray. It was that real. Yeah, it was that real. I don't have all the memories of everything because I was blacking in and out too. I don't know if that's from hitting my head or breathing or both or what, or I don't know, but eventually all the people showed up. I guess they couldn't find me. They were really, really struggling because we were so far down in this ravine. And in fact, we weren't even on the side of the road. We had gone through a farmer's field, and we were out, we're out a little ways in the field. I feel it's kind of ridiculous. Wow. But they finally got to us, and I guess I'll just, he would know some of all the little details in between. But like I said, I was blacking out or whatever, kind of coming to, and then kind of experiencing this state where I could sometimes hear the conversations, and but pretty much always I could feel the conversations, almost like whatever they were feeling, I was feeling. And I was laying there, and I could hear some activity and the different people, around the truck, and they had done a couple things. I can't tell you exactly because I was kind of out, but I believe they cut my seatbelt and stuff like that, and they were going to pull me out the back glass, and I don't know how it goes, but the words were like, it was something like, "Oh shit, he's attached" or something. I swear that's what they said. Someone. Well, it was kind of at this point that they came to the realization that I was actually pinned underneath the car. So my entire right arm, kind of shoulder or whatever was under the car, and so I wasn't going anywhere. I had a truck laying on me, and the next part is kind of interesting because I just remember there's almost maybe this happened really fast, but gosh, it just seemed like it was for eternity. This next part, which was basically some kind of almost confrontation between a couple different people there, the helpers, the 911 people or whatever, and the one threw out the idea of basically they all pushed the truck over to get me out because I'm pinned underneath the truck. And the other guy's saying, "Hey, if you do that, we don't know what he has for neck injuries," and on and on and on, and he's gonna, he could die. And then the first guy or the guys or whoever, they're like, "If we do nothing, he's going to die anyway." This is the conversation. But the part that I just remember is, man, those two main people that I could feel in that situation, man, there was a lot going on inside them. It was there's some gravity to it, both of those decisions, and I could feel the weight of it. Well, I could probably almost tell you, what's going to happen next. They didn't cut my arm off, they flipped the truck over, and that was the second most painful part of that day, because if you remember me telling you, the seats had been kicked outward, towards the doors, or in my case, the missing window, and if you remember, I said that the roof was beat down. I mean, especially on my side, just beat down. And so the roof is right here to me. So when they stood me up, I hit with full impact, like a doorbell again, or whatever, dumbbell or whatever. Boom, right here. And that was, because I was still sitting in the vehicle when this is taking place, and I'm in the seat, and the seat's keeping me in a nice proper position, and bang, oh my goodness, that was intense. And I went out, like it put me out. I was done. And I remember a little bit of them putting me on the gurney, and and their struggle. My eyes weren't open, but I mean, you're at such an angle on that gurney going up that hill. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I remember, I remember that felt kind of like I was going to slide off of it, kind of thing. And they must have had, I would guess, 4 guys probably, carry me all the way up this embankment, in the snow and everything else. And then there was a little something. I kind of remember when I was getting slid into the back of the ambulance. No real detail. I couldn't tell you if there's 1 or 10 people in there, but I kind of remember something. The thing is, I wasn't supposed to go by ambulance. This for this injury. For what I had sustained. This is not. You would have been medevaced or whatever, helicopter, but the ice, that weird ice that was forming, that we didn't know anything about, that we hit, was it was forming on the blades and stuff like that of the chopper, I guess, so they wouldn't fly. So they end up taking me to Manchester to stabilize me, before going on to Iowa City. I think I'm going to stop the story there, and I think what I'm going to do is when I start the story up, when I do part 2 or whatever, when I start the story up, I'm going to start it at the Manchester Hospital, and we'll go from there. I guess if you've made it this far, congratulations. I don't believe you've got to witness a single miracle. I guess you could say, because you see me here, that I'm alive, so the miracle that I survived. But I guess I'm gonna do. It'll be a cliffhanger. I guess I'm just saving all that for part 2. I guess, but you gotta build up these things. You got to yeah. So that's all I've got.